It's July 25th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with another round of missile launches by North Korea. Pyongyang fired two short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea in an apparent show of discontent after another U.S. nuclear-powered submarine arrived in South Korea. Washington has warned the regime to halt such escalatory actions. North Korea says it has invited a Chinese delegation as part of commemorations of the 70th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice, known as Victory Day in Pyongyang. This will be the first time for official foreign guests to enter the North since 2020. BTS member Jungkook has made it to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 songs chart with his first official solo single, 7. That makes him the second South Korean soloist to top the list following BTS bandmate Jimin. North Korea Monday night fired two short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea. The arrival of the USS Annapolis on Jeju Island could have triggered the North to do so. Our Lee Dae-hyun leads us off this morning.
North Korea late on Monday fired two ballistic missiles into the sea off the east coast. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said it detected two ballistic missiles fired from areas near Pyongyang at 11:55 p.m. on July 24th and at midnight on the 25th. Both missiles flew around 400 kilometers before falling into the sea. This comes after a U.S. nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Annapolis, arrived at a naval base on South Korea's southern island of Jeju.
This shows the North's intention to respond militarily to Seoul's strategic assets. It could also be interpreted as Pyongyang's willingness to lead the tensions on the Korean peninsula.
The USS Annapolis is not classified as a strategic asset, as it's not nuclear-armed and is equipped with conventional weapons, but it's one of the main U.S. nuclear-powered submarines in terms of scale. Some pundits also say that the launch is to strengthen solidarity for the upcoming Victory Day in North Korea, which celebrates the 70 years of armistice in the Korean War. Earlier on Wednesday, Pyongyang fired two ballistic missiles into the East Sea, and multiple cruise missiles were launched on Saturday as well. South Korea's military said that the consecutive missile launches are a provocation that harms the peace and safety of not only the Korean peninsula but also the international community, urging Pyongyang to stop firing missiles as it's a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. It also said that Seoul and Washington will closely watch and prepare for any additional provocations by the North. The United States Indo-Pacific Command also said the North's recent missile launch has caused instability in the Korean peninsula, reaffirming that it will defend the South from any threat. The U.S. official also said it will continue closely communicating with its allies on the situation. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State, Matthew Miller, also condemned the North's missile launch while saying that Washington will focus on the diplomatic relationship with Pyongyang and said that talk without preconditions is still open for North Korea. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
North Korea has invited a Chinese delegation for the upcoming Victory Day as a first official foreign guest since COVID-19. Now, speculations rise over whether this could see the regime gearing up to open up its border after all the pandemic years. Lee Kyung-un reports.
After 3 years and 6 months, North Korea is set to receive its first foreign delegation. It is inviting a Chinese delegation to mark the 70th anniversary of the armistice of the Korean War on Thursday, known as Victory Day by the regime. According to the North Korean Central News Agency on Monday, the invited Chinese delegation is led by Lee Hong-sung, a member of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. Lee's rank is lower than that of Lee Chan-shu, then Chinese top legislator who visited the regime in 2018 for the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the communist state. But his visit will mark the very first official visit by foreign guests in a shift in policy. Since the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020, North Korea has closed its borders, only partially resuming cargo transportation with China last year. The only known case of foreign guests visiting the regime was back in March when China's new ambassador to North Korea, Wang Ya-jun, took up the post. North Korea has also been taking part in international events with ambassador-level representatives already overseas. This includes the ASEAN Regional Forum for the past 3 years, with this year's forum also attended by its ambassador to Indonesia, Ang Kwang-il, instead of its foreign minister, Choi Sun-hee. Observers largely see the North's first post-pandemic foreign guest coming from China as an apparent show of their ties against South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. But eyes are on whether the two could resume other exchanges, perhaps in flights and trains, or keep it at high-level diplomacy for the time being. Young-eun, Arirang News.
Washington says that Pyongyang has not given any substantive response in regard to U.S. soldier Travis King's whereabouts or well-being following his apparent defection to North Korea last week. According to U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Monday, the North has not responded to any requests, including those from United Nations Command, dismissing earlier reports that the North had responded to UNC messages. However, Miller added that while the North Koreans acknowledge they received the message, it does not constitute an actual response. He reiterated that none of the messages by the U.S. had received a response from the North. President Yoon Suk Yeol will meet this afternoon with the Prime Minister of Luxembourg and the Governor General of New Zealand. According to Yoon's office, the president will hold one-on-one meetings at the Yongsan Presidential Office with Luxembourg's PM Xavier Bettel and New Zealand Governor General Cindy Carroll, who are in South Korea to represent their countries, which participated in the Korean War as a part of the UN forces. Officials from some 22 countries were also invited to Seoul to attend the ceremony this week, marking the 70th anniversary of the armistice agreement that stopped active fighting, which coincides with UN Forces Participation Day on Thursday. North Korea launched more missiles on Monday night, just 2 days after similar launches on Saturday. Now, how will South Korea manage the situation on the Korean Peninsula for the latter half of the year? For more, we're joined by Professor Kim Young-jin this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the latest missile launches. What's behind the North's SRBM's short-range ballistic missiles this time?
Yes, over the decades, North Korea has conducted numerous nuclear and missile tests, mainly for three regions. The first one is a message to foreign countries, including the U.S. and the ROC and Japan, and international community. And second region is a message to domestic audience in showing their military capability as a strong leader. Finally, technical test itself. You have to be the technical development by test. At this time, U.S. nuclear submarine is visiting South Korea, and among them, the first region will be a strong region for nuclear missile test of North Korea this time.
Sure. So several motives behind the launches, giving a warning to South Korea, the U.S., to consolidating its power and letting North Korean people know about that, and lastly, testing its technology, right?
Yeah.
Then the Yoon Suk Yeol administration, right, has maintained a long, hard-line stance when it comes to North Korea issues. Now, Professor, briefly walk us through the major North Korea policies under the Yoon administration.
Actually, Moon Jae-in administration, we remember, is about all about the Korean Peninsula peace process, peace first, based on power, and peace treaty and peace regime and end of war declaration based on the Panmunjom declaration, inter-Korean relations, and also Singapore summit between Kim Jong-un and Trump. So it is all about the peacemaking process. But on the other hand, the Yoon administration is more like based on strong deterrence and open dialogue at the same time based on the principle. Principle means it's about the human rights or based on liberal democracy. So Yoon Suk Yeol government to have some patience and more international cooperation, the one voice, especially with the U.S. government on the North Korean policy.
Sure, if the former Moon Jae-in administration focused on that peacemaking here on the Korean Peninsula, the Yoon administration, the current administration at the moment, is focusing on strong deterrence while leaving the door open for dialogue, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Then the minister nominee for South Korea's unification ministry, that is Kim Yong-ho, he said last week that he'll prioritize, quote, substantive results over dialogue in dealing with North Korea. Now, what do you think he means by that? I mean, how do you read such a remark?
Yeah, new unification minister candidate, the Professor Kim Yoon statement is the same as the president message about North Korea policy. Unification policy should be based on principle like human rights and unification based on the liberal democracy system and also strong deterrence with the U.S. government. So without dialogue, there will be no one-side support, especially to North Korea. So this kind of message is showing very strong deterrence and the one unification measure. So North Korea is similar to the Lee Myung-bak government and Park Geun-hye government as well.
Sure. Then is that in line with what President said about ministry no longer acting like a support agency for the North? Is that also in line with that?
Yes, that Yoon Suk Yeol emphasizes the kind of statement. The Unification Department role should be changed, not just the supporting North Korea humanitarian or that kind of support, but at the same time, Unification Department have to control this overall picture, more bigger picture to the North Korea with the patient, not just the administration work for the North Korea, including Gyeongang Mountain or Gyeongsang Industrial Complex. So at this time, there is no strong inter-Korean relations. So Unification Department role is design more bigger picture and the design of policy based on the strong deterrence also principle like human rights.
Sure, keeping hardline stands in various aspects. Now, do you think then there'll be a change or shift in the current policies on North Korea? I mean, what is needed to bring the North back to dialogue like Seoul once?
Yeah, there will be some difficulty, especially in this situation under the U.S.-China strategic competition and Taiwan issue as well. So the Republic of Korea government need to take some patience and based on strong deterrence, because North Korea anyway conducted many missile tests without any participation to the negotiation table. So now Republic government position is based on strong deterrence and policy based on the principle. But at the same time, open any dialogue like the audacious initiative emphasized. So they open the dialogue, but at the same time, they want to keep a strong deterrence point, especially with the U.S. government as a one voice against North Korea.
Sure, that indeed requires lots of patience, right? Keeping that hardline stance, a strong deterrence on the North while leaving the door open for negotiating talks. Now, another significant difference from the previous administration in terms of North Korea policies, more emphasis on that trilateral cooperation, right, between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Why does such trilateral cooperation matter? I mean, how can the three-way cooperation work to tame North Korea at the same time deal with North Korean issues wisely?
Yeah, trilateral security partnership is the first audience is definitely North Korea nuclear missile threat. But at the same time, as a global pivot state, South Korea have to join as a global picture, especially Russia-Ukraine and U.S.-China strategic competition. Now it's a rise of Chinese military and economic power is one of the region in strategic instability in this region. So it does not mean we want to fight against China, but at the same time, we want to keep a new balance of power by strengthening U.S., ROC, Japan trilateral partnership. So it has some controversy, but at the same time, it's needed, especially against North Korean nuclear threat, also the rise of Chinese military and economic power. So trilateral security partnership is possible at the same time with the open dialogue with North Korea. So we have to keep and develop this posture, but at the same time, we always emphasize on the opening dialogue to North Korea for any negotiation table.
Sure, the trilateral cooperation is only expected to be stronger with the three leaders set to meet at next month, upon the invitation by U.S. President Joe Biden, where we should expect another one collective security voice, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from DC this morning. You have a good night.
Thank you very much for having me.
Just over a week after its release, BTS Jungkook's solo single 7 has topped the Billboard Hot 100 Songs chart. Now, that makes him just the second South Korean solo artist to claim the #1 spot after his fellow group member Jimin did so earlier this year. Rhee Sang-wooc reports.
Less than 2 weeks since the release of his first official solo single, BTS's Jungkook saw himself and his song 7 at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 Singles chart on Monday. According to the Billboard chart released Monday, 7 has sold 153,000 song downloads and CD singles combined, while drawing 21.9 million streams and 6.4 million radio airplay audience impressions. The Billboard Hot 100 chart asked the most popular songs of the week in the U.S. across all genres, including streaming, radio airplay, and sales data. Interestingly, yet not surprisingly, Jungkook becomes just the second South Korean solo artist since his fellow group member Jimin topped the chart in April with his single Like Crazy. As a group, BTS and their songs Dynamite, a remix of Savage Love, Life Goes On, Butter, Permission to Dance, and My Universe all topped the Billboard Hot 100 charts, making the K-pop stars a regular at the top of the list. Jungkook is also the sixth member of the 7-piece group to have debuted as a solo artist. 7 is a pop song featuring American female rapper Latto and entered the British official singles chart at #3. After its official release on July 14th, it also debuted at #1 on the iTunes charts in 106 countries, as well as Spotify's daily top song global chart. Rhee Sang-wooc, Arirang News.
Now, here in Seoul, a special exhibition is underway to commemorate the centenary of the birth of Korean painter Rhee Sang-wooc. He is one of the pioneers who brought printmaking to the forefront of post-war Korean art history. Shin Se-byuk has the story.
With every brush stroke, a piece of hometown and a longing untold. These are the works of Korean abstract painter Rhee Sang-wooc. The exhibition Rhee Sang-wooc, the Centenary, is being held at Hakgojae Gallery in Central Seoul to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the late Korean artist's birth. He was born in 1923 in Hamhung, now in North Korea. In 1947, he moved to Seoul and was unable to make it back to his hometown due to the outbreak of the Korean War and the later division of the peninsula. Following that separation, Yi poured his emotions and feeling of nostalgia and longing for his hometown onto the canvas. Another theme that can be easily found among his work is monologue. His unspoken thoughts and answers to untold questions are transformed into abstract forms. In post-war Korean art history, Rhee Sang-wooc was a pioneer who brought printmaking to the forefront. He was also an artist who charted his own path while distinguishing himself from the prevailing trend of 단색화, or Korean monochrome paintings in the late 60s and 70s by featuring his own abstract styles.
His works are very different from other 단색화, Korean monochrome paintings. He has two abstract idioms. One is lyrical abstract art. The second one is calligraphic abstract art in his work.
His work conveys vivid colors and bold lines. At the same time, everything is expressed in abstract form, such as squares for calligraphic abstractions and circles for lyrical geometric abstracts. His unique and idiosyncratic abstraction styles have garnered attention since last year, when he was one of the 7 artists showcased at the gallery's exhibition, featuring works from the mid-20th century. The current exhibition marks his first solo exhibition in 26 years, bringing his lasting legacy to art lovers' attention. This exhibition will run until July 29th. After that, his works will be presented at the Frieze Masters section of Frieze Seoul, an international art fair in September. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Israel, where mass demonstrations have broken out after Parliament passed a controversial law on Monday that overhauls the country's judiciary system. Now, the bill, which prevents Israel's Supreme Court from blocking government decisions, is considered unreasonable. Passed 64 votes to 0 after opposition MPs boycotted the final vote. Now, by Monday evening, protests against the bill had spread nationwide as thousands of people blocked roads and clashed with police in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and other parts of the country. Now, police fired water cannons to break up the demonstrations and made dozens of arrests. The new law comes despite months of violent protests in Israel, with opponents warning that it threatens Israeli democracy. The government says the reform is needed to correct what it calls a power imbalance. The law is part of a broader set of judicial reforms that will be voted on later. Now, turning over to Senegal, at least 17 bodies have been recovered after a boat believed to be carrying migrants and refugees capsized off the coast of the capital Dakar on Monday. Authorities say 2 people were rescued, but witnesses say there were more on board, although the number of people missing is not known. Officials say the victims were likely migrants attempting to reach Spain's Canary Islands. According to aid group Walking Borders, almost 800 people have died or gone missing on the route in the first half of 2023. Now, in Russia, President Vladimir Putin signed legislation on Monday that officially outlaws gender changes in the country. The new law bans gender reassignment surgery and hormone therapy. It also bans changing a person's gender in official documents and annuls marriages where one person has changed gender. Adoptions by such couples are also prohibited. The new legislation is part of a broad crackdown on the local LGBT community, which is meant to protect the country's traditional values. It comes half a year after Russia passed a law banning depictions of gay lifestyles, which the government called gay propaganda. And finally, Team Germany got off to a flying start in the 2023 Women's World Cup on Monday with a dominating 6-0 win against tournament debutants Morocco. German captain Alexandra Popp scored twice with 2 headers in the first half in Melbourne. Clara Böll got Germany's 3rd goal just after halftime. Morocco's problems worsened then with 2 own goals before Lea Schüller added a 6th for Germany. Now, on the same day, the opening match from Group G saw Italy win 1-0 against Argentina, while Group F's opener saw Brazil beat Panama 4-0.
Good morning. Brace for another round of monsoon rain. Right now, the whole country is covered with dark clouds, dropping heavy rain of 30 to 50 millimeters an hour in Jeolla-do Province. Rain will expand to more southern regions as the day goes on. Jeolla-do Provinces and surrounding regions are forecast to see downpours through the earlier part of the day before letting up from late afternoon. Until then, Jeolla-do and Gwangju could see more than 100 millimeters of rainfall. The capital and west of Gangwon-do Province could see rain lingering into early Wednesday. For now, a heavy rain advisory is issued for parts of Jeolla-do Province, and a heat advisory remains in place in parts of Gangwon-do and Jeju. Monsoon rain is keeping the searing heat at bay, though many parts are experiencing tropical nights with overnight temperatures exceeding 25 degrees Celsius. And this afternoon, Seoul and Gwangju see a high of 30 degrees, Daegu topping out at 31. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Korea time.